Coming up on Big Ten today, the Michigan Wolverines 2 wins away from a hockey national title. Our crew at the Frozen Four tells us how the Wolverines stack up with BC. As we count down to the NFL draft, we'll be joined by former Ohio State star Steele, how he's preparing for the next step in his football journey. And lacrosse season heating up around the conference. We'll catch you up with the very latest on both the men's and the women's games on Big Ten today. Now. Welcome in. It is Big Ten today. I'm Dave Revson. Great to have you with us on this Wednesday. We had a team in the Final Four this past weekend. This coming weekend, it is the Frozen Four as Michigan continues its quest for a hockey national championship. That is today's big story. As we dive into it, the Wolverines are going to take on the top seed Boston College tomorrow night in Minnesota. It's game 2 of the national semifinals. Game 1 features Boston University and Denver. The Wolverines, the only Frozen Four team that was not a top 4 seed in the tourney. Remember, they knocked off the 4th seed Michigan State in round 2 to advance. For more on the build-up to tomorrow's showdowns, here are Rick Pizzo, Paul Caponigri, and Fred Pletch.
Greetings from St. Paul, Minnesota, in the XL Energy Center, site of the 2024 Frozen Four. Michigan making its 3rd straight appearance in the Frozen Four and 28th overall. That's the most in the history of college hockey. With that, welcome you inside the arena, affectionately known as the X. Rick Pizzo, Paul Caponigri, Fred Pletch alongside. So excited for this Frozen Four, a strong Frozen with 4 teams, any of whom could easily win the national championship. And this is the culmination, fellas. See summer-long workouts, the season, the conference grind. This is the promised land, and now 4 teams have the hope to take home the trophy that everybody was looking for when the puck first dropped on the season.
Yeah, I mean, everyone, whether you're beaten up a little bit from the season, the bruises, they kind of go away when you walk into this building. You kind of saw the teams do that. The excitement, almost like a new season, or it's like Christmas morning. But for Michigan, the only non-number 1 seed, you know, people think they're the underdog. I don't think they do. Their confidence is high. 3rd straight year, as Fred knows, is being there every game. Really good stuff from Michigan. And then the teams they're facing, BC is going to be fun, but just a really good, exciting time to be here in Minnesota.
And welcome to the Blue Blood Frozen Four. I mean, you've got everyone out east is hoping for a BC BU championship. I want to see Denver and Michigan go at it. Who can hit double digits in national championships, as they both have 9 coming into the weekend. But it's difficult to get here. Michigan in the Frozen Four for a 3rd straight year. And since this century started, only 5 teams have been to 3 straight Frozen Fours, and Michigan is doing it for the 2nd time. So kudos to Brandon Naurato and his staff.
You bring up Coach Naurato, who was named the permanent coach right before last year's Frozen Four. So he and the staff have done this before. And Fred, it's unique, this layoff. You have almost 2 weeks in between the end of the regional final and the start of the Frozen Four. How much will it help Naurato and this staff that they went through this a year ago?
Well, experience matters. And I think Brandon Naurato, as you said, was named full-time head coach, had the interim tag removed just before the Frozen Four last year. And what he did in the offseason, he really bolstered the areas that he was concerned about last season. Brought in Matt Deschamps defensively. Didn't have a goalie coach last year, so he brings in Kevin Reiter from the NTDP. And I just noticed the last 10 days, Brandon Naurato and this staff just seem so much more comfortable. They know they've got a tough task, maybe a monumental task ahead of them, but they just seem more assured of themselves, having been here, having done that before. And will it pay off? You know, we've all waited 17 long years now for a Big Ten team to win another national championship since diminutive Jeff Lurg and the Michigan State Spartans did it in 2007. So this could be the weekend.
And to kind of go off the 10-day thing, Rick, I think it's a benefit to Michigan. Seamus Casey, their All-American defenseman, the kind of backbone there, got injured. I think he had a concussion. And that 10 days is going to help him. He's been back practicing. He's a go, it looks like. And I just think some of their guys have played heavy minutes up front. Gavin Brindley's out there all the time, it seems like. Rucker McGroarty, a lot of is put on them. I think this 10 days gives them a chance to regroup. They come in here, like we said at the opening, they're re-energized to go. I think that's going to be a huge benefit for Michigan going against BC.
You believe they have a lot of confidence. I believe they have a lot of momentum, and they should coming out of that regional. You have to beat a really good North Dakota team, and then you get a little bit of payback. Michigan State had beaten Michigan in 4 of 5 previous meetings. The Wolverines find a way, even without Seamus Casey in that game. What did you like about what you saw from Michigan in that regional?
I mean, I did like the fact that their D stepped up. You know, you lose a guy that plays about 25 minutes a game. You're like, okay, how do we replace that? But Marshall Warren, the transfer from Boston College, this is going to be an interesting storyline in the future. Ethan Edwards has been fantastic. They both scored against Michigan State. Against North Dakota, they were down 2-1. They lost Casey. They scored 2 goals in the third period right off the bat, and you're like, nothing really phases this team. They're uber confident. I don't think they're gonna come in overconfident. Obviously, they're playing a ridiculously good team in Boston College, but nothing's gonna rattle them. If they get down a goal or two, I don't think they're gonna be like, let's keep going, because they showed that in the regional in both of those teams, playing North Dakota, who was a #1 seed all season until like the last couple of weeks. So essentially, they beat 2 teams in the top 5. In a relatively green. If you saw the stands, there was a lot of Spartan green and a lot of North Dakota green, and they answered the bell. So Michigan, nothing is stopping them at this point in terms of their confidence.
What do the coaches say? You want to be playing your best hockey of the year at this time. Michigan certainly is. It starts with a guy in goal, Jacob Barcheski. DJ Barzo, as his teammates call him, 38 saves in the championship game, the Midwest Regional against Michigan State. You mentioned the D. So Seamus Casey goes down in the first period, took a hit from Johannes. And what happens? Well, the rest of the D steps up, not only defensively, but in the win over North Dakota, they had 2 goals and 5 points from the back end. And it's I think Ethan Edwards has been a real difference maker since he's come back. Didn't play the first half of the season because of off-season shoulder surgery. He's come back, really solidified the D. And up front, I mean, they've got game breakers on every line now. They've kind of diversified the lines, moved Shifsky up with Brindley and McGroarty. So they've got great chemistry. And, some teams this time of year, their lines are set in stone. They're rolling them out time after time. You don't know with Michigan. They could have one line chart, and then the third shift, it's different because everybody has shown they can play with everybody. And when you play with Frank Nazar, you better expect the puck. I mean, this kid is just unbelievable. First-round draft pick of the Blackhawks. And again, a kid who last year didn't play almost the first 3 quarters of the season. So all the freshman trials and tribulations that guys went through last year as freshmen, Frank Nazar has gone through as a sophomore, and right now, to bring it full circle, he's playing his best hockey in college right now.
Yep.
BC is the #1 overall seed. They're widely considered the best team and arguably the most talented team in all of college hockey. Fred, Paul referenced this. They are considered to be the favorite by those outside the Michigan locker room. You know the Michigan program as well as anybody, and I think it's safe to say there's no one that wears the maize and blue that considers themselves to be underdogs.
No, this is a confident group, and it starts with the leadership. And when you talk about leaders, Rucker McGroarty, he captained the World Junior team. And there's, 7 players from BC that he was the captain of, and 4 more for his Michigan team. So you've got leadership from guys that don't even wear letters, although Rucker now wears a letter on the road. So Michigan knows that they've bought in. And it's all about, right now, Michigan's offense, but it's all about winning the net front at both ends of the ice. And their D has been so improved at boxing out, doing all the little things, lifting sticks, stick detail in front of the net. It's really made a difference.
Yeah, and in discipline, right? I think that's going to be huge. Obviously, Boston College's high-powered offense, and they've done a better job with that. I mean, Michigan State did have 2 power play goals, but that was it. So their 5-on-5 play has been fantastic late in the season because of a lot of what Fred just said. So those are going to be keys. And we're going to talk about this more and more. But just like first initial thought is like 5-on-5, Michigan has played so well, and I think that's where they win this game.
We will, in fact, get much deeper into the actual matchup as we break down Michigan and BC. Both these teams loaded. Top-end talent, depth as well. BC with 4 of the nation's top 6 scorers heading into the Frozen Four, but Michigan not far behind. We'll break down the Eagles and Wolverines as we continue here from the X in St. Paul at the Frozen Four. But for now, we send it back to Dave in the studio.
Thank you, Rick. And as Rick said, lots more from St. Paul coming up. The guys will dive into that matchup between the Wolverines and Eagles. Again, a national title berth on the line. Plus the inspirational tale of a former Ohio State star who refused to let a life-altering diagnosis stand in the way of her national championship dreams. This is Big Ten Today.
Big Ten Today is presented by Old National Bank, official bank of the Big Ten Conference.
Our big stat is brought to you by Old National Bank. When Michigan faces off with BC tomorrow, it will be a matchup of the two teams with the most Frozen Four appearances ever. Michigan's 28, 2 more than the Eagles' 26. The Wolverines have won 9 national titles all time, but they've come up empty in their last 8 Frozen Four appearances. The last championship was in 1998. More on the quest for national championship number 10 with Rick and the guys.
Dave, thank you. Wednesday is Media Day, press conference and practice here on the ice at the X behind us, and you are going to see some of the best talent in all of college hockey. So excited to watch Michigan and BC in the second semifinal on Thursday night. Cappy, do your best to try to describe the level and depth of talent that we'll see skating when these two teams take the ice.
I think we counted out 25 NHL draft picks, multiple first-round draft picks, Fred. And what brings that more is the youth, too. Like, the top guys mostly are freshmen and sophomore. I mean, that's kind of the way college hockey's trending, and really college sports. But the fact that these guys can come in as 18, 19-year-olds and do what they're doing and just have the utmost confidence. The stage doesn't – I'm expecting this to be better than the regionals because they don't get phased by these stages. Just amazing stuff.
Yeah, you get NHL games without 25 draft picks. You look at free agents. But when you talk about the talent, I'll go back to something Mike Hastings said to me early in the season. I stopped in to see Mike, and he asked what I was doing and traveling with Michigan, doing radio. He said, boy, that must be fun. It's like traveling with the Globetrotters. Because, I mean, the talent that Michigan can bring and has brought the last couple of seasons, symbolic of what's in the Big Ten. I mean, you look at Minnesota, you look at what Wisconsin's done. But Michigan has been the leader when you go back to, Power and Beniers and Johnson and Luke Hughes all taken in the top 6 picks in the NHL draft. And but you can talk about Michigan's talent and depth and game breakers and difference makers. BC's got just as many, maybe more.
And so many familiar faces for these guys when they take the ice on Thursday night because they'll be playing against each other, but they also played with each other. Couple of different teams at the World Juniors, Fred. It's always interesting to me when you play on this stage against guys that you were just teammates with a couple of months ago and how that familiarity kind of breeds itself into the game.
No friends on the ice, right? I think I counted 10 former National Team Development Program players on BC. Michigan has 7. And one guy who's played the commonality, who's played with both, is Marshall Warren, who wore the C for the Eagles last year and has become a mainstay on the Michigan back end. And, like the rest of them, Marshall Warren is playing his best hockey right now. And Marshall Warren, interesting, he's a Minnesota Wild draft pick, will not sign with them. But how many college players can come to Minnesota and talk about Billy G., Bill Guerin, the GM of the Minnesota Wild, because Marshall Warren played with Bill's son Liam in youth hockey coming up. So to call Bill Guerin, the NHL GM in town, Billy G, just speaks volumes about how small this hockey world is, I guess.
You got to wonder how many text messages went back and forth with those guys, because specifically the guys from this year's World Junior team, they just won a gold medal in Sweden in front of that. So they have this kind of, this thing to go back on, but now you're facing each other. And, I'm sure there were some fun text messages, a little chatter, because I know talking to some of the guys when they got back, yeah, there was a lot of chatter because everyone was battling about who had the better school. Oh, we got this, we have this. So I'm sure the BC guys and the Michigan guys, well, we got this at our school, we got this. So I mean, that's just entertaining stuff, a little sidebar action. But I think it's going to bring a little more jam to this game.
We want to win every game, but whoever wins here on Thursday night gets to play for the ultimate chip in all of college hockey. When you boil it down, is there one area or one aspect, Paul, where you think the difference will be made for either the Wolverines or the Eagles on Thursday night?
You know, you'd think the power play, right, would be a huge deal for Michigan because they're the number one team, 35% all year. It's been just led the way for them all year. But when you look at the statistics, and with Boston College, they have the second best power play, and they have the number one penalty kill. So I actually think the 5-on-5 play, where Michigan has been really good, that's how they won the regional, is being the better 5-on-5 team. I think they want to keep that game, the special teams minimum, which we've seen a lot in these regionals, that the referees are letting the teams play. I think keeping it 5-on-5 is something that Michigan can benefit from.
I would agree. Michigan, over the course of the majority of the season, was the most penalized team in all of college hockey, and their penalty kill was not good. But those numbers have completely turned around. If I look at what the key to this game is going to be, it might be, how does Michigan's D, which is very mobile, by the way, great skating, how do they handle the Eagles off the rush? Because the Eagles feast off the rush. As I look at the analytics, I think 4 of the top 6 rush chance players in the nation are on the Eagles team. So that's one thing. And the other one, it's no secret, own the net front. Get your nose dirty. That's where you have to go for goals. And we've got the 2 players, again, in the nation that are 1 and 2. Ryan Leonard of the Eagles with his 31 goals, and Dylan Duke, the Tampa Bay draft pick for Michigan, with 26 goals. He leads them. They lead the nation in inner slot chances. You want to get to the inner slot, you better pay the price. You better pay the price.
If you're going to be a little bit behind that slot, in between the pipes in this game, you better be on your best. And interesting contrast between these 2 goaltenders, a youngster for BC, a much older guy for Michigan, and a guy in Jake Barczewski, Fred, who's clearly playing his best hockey late in the year.
He is 25 years old, transfer from Canisius, where he played in big games last year. He posted a shutout in the Atlantic Hockey Championship game. Then Minnesota took it to him in the national tournament. But Barczewski, coming off a 38-save performance against Michigan State. And his counterpart, Jacob Fowler, how does Michigan handle him? Well, Fowler was the backup to Trey Augustine at the World Juniors. So Michigan's key players, they know Jacob Fowler, they know how he moves, and they know what they just did to Trey Augustine.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting little dissection there. Who has the advantage, right? Because Fowler knows some of those guys, their techniques and shooting. But I think maybe it helps Michigan because he can kind of talk to his teammates and give more information to Fowler about Fowler to 20 guys as opposed to just 4 that Fowler knows from the Michigan side.
So much fun as we get set for Thursday's national semifinal between Michigan and BC. We'll have plenty of coverage coming up throughout the course of the day. We hear from Brandon Naurato, some Wolverine players, more analysis from Fred and Paul as well coming up on Wednesday night's edition of The Big Show. But for now, from St. Paul and the Frozen, we send it back to Dave in our Big Ten Network studios.
Thanks a lot, guys. Up next, we're going to turn our attention to the NFL Draft. Steele Chambers made a mid-career position switch in Columbus. Now he looks to carry his college success into the pro ranks. He's going to join us next on Big Ten Today. Steele Chambers came to Columbus as a 4-star running back out of high school. He leaves as the leading tackler on one of the best teams in the Big Ten. Chambers recorded a career-high 83 tackles a year ago, tops on a Buckeye squad. They went 11-2 and played in the Cotton Bowl. Announced just a few days after that game that he is headed to the NFL Draft, and he joins us now for our big interview. Steele, you did have a year of eligibility left. What made you decide that the time was now to head to the NFL?
I'm getting old, man. I've been here for 5 years. I feel like just naturally time is running its course for me here. But, I mean, I'm thankful for everything that this place has given me, but I'm just ready to take that next step.
If you think you're getting old, I've got some stories to tell you. But anyway, that's for another time. Once you made the decision, I know you headed down to Pensacola, Florida to do a little bit of training. Take us through that training process. You're back in Columbus now, but what was kind of the focus when you were down in Pensacola?
While I was down there, it was basically just preparing for the combine. So we were doing everything from 40-yard dash stuff, a bunch of 5-10-5, L drill, just all of that. And then, of course, like working on just general speed and power. So it was mostly just combine prep.
What's the best piece of advice you've gotten about the draft process?
Just put your head down, do the work. I mean, you see like boards, you see like some boards you might be high, some boards you might be low, but at the end of the day, you have no idea where you're going until they call your name. So just keep your head down, just keep working.
Anything that surprised you about the process as you've gone through it, not just the training component, but the combine and pro days and all of the different steps along the way?
Nothing really. I thought the combine, it was interesting. They made me strip like 3 different times. I thought that was kind of weird. I mean, besides that, I mean, I don't know. It just feels like I'm just preparing myself for the next step in life.
You did make a pretty big switch. As I mentioned at the end of the last segment, you went from running back to linebacker a couple years into your time in Columbus. What did you think ultimately made linebacker the better fit for you?
I just feel like as far as like what the team needed, I feel like that was the better fit. And then after about a couple months, I realized I just felt like I was more loose, more fluid at linebacker than I was at running back.
I understand you picked up the guitar along the way in this process.
Yeah.
How does learning the guitar compare to learning a new position? Although I know you did play linebacker in high school.
I don't know, dude. I'm a little slow right now learning the guitar, but I'd say changing positions is probably harder. But I mean, guitar is hard. I got to do one thing with one hand, one thing with the other hand. I'm not very good at it, but I'm getting there.
What are the songs that you've learned that you feel most comfortable with at this point?
Oh, geez. Wish Grandpa's Never Died. Simple Song, Chris Stapleton.
Okay.
Couple songs from Camp, if you know them.
Yes, I've heard of them. Yes.
Yeah, I've got about 5 songs in my repertoire I could pull out.
All right. Well, there's certainly time, but it's ambitious, no doubt. As you look forward to the draft, most of these draft projections have you somewhere in the mid to late rounds. I mean, I think that's just kind of the reality of where people see you. What do you say to those who doubt you?
Screw it. I don't really care if you doubt me or not. Simple as that.
You literally would say that to their face.
Yeah, I don't really care.
All right. What's the biggest asset that you think you would bring to an NFL team?
I think just speed, just getting to the ball, and then I like to have fun. So just a guy that brings energy all the time.
As you reflect on your Ohio State career, Steele, is there a moment that you will look back on most fondly that was the highlight of your time there?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it, honestly, for me was just off the field stuff with the guys. I mean, I think that was always a fun time, but I mean, there's certainly a bunch of on the field stuff that I won't forget.
Any games in particular that stand out?
Rose Bowl 2022, was that 2022? Yeah, we had all of our roommates on the same side playing linebacker, so that was awesome.
I want to ask you a little bit about the team you're leaving behind. The Buckeyes spring game is Saturday. It is on Fox. I know you're in the facility right now. You've certainly still spent some time around this team. You're not in spring practice every day, but you hear what's going on. Are there some players, maybe one in particular, that you think could really emerge this coming year that maybe people aren't thinking about?
I think there's tons. I mean, at linebacker, you've got Cody, he's going to play he's going to do a hell of a job there. And then you've got CJ, you've got Sonny, Gabe Powers, Little Stover. You got a bunch of people that I think are going to step up there. And then I've noticed wide receiver that, who is it? Jeremiah? What's his name?
Yeah.
Jeremiah Smith. He kind of looks like a freak a freak of nature. So he's probably going to be good.
All right. Well, guys, for us to watch, I want to ask you about the new linebackers coach, a fellow by the name of James Laurinaitis. He's our former colleague here at the Big Ten Network, went to Notre Dame briefly, was on the staff last year, but was not a full-time position coach. What does he bring to that position?
He just brings energy, and then just a sense of whenever you're getting coached up by him, you know that he's gone through the exact same things that you have. I mean, he's literally been through it all, leading tackler for the Rams. So whatever he's telling you, it's probably correct. So there's no really like indecision whether or not you should be listening to him or not.
Last question for you, Steele. I know it's one that's on the minds of many Buckeye fans. What's it going to take to beat Michigan and return to the top of the Big Ten next year?
I almost said something I should have. I don't know. Just let him hang, man. Just go out there and play loose.
Steele, I appreciate you sharing your unfiltered thoughts with us. Your willingness not to hold back is much appreciated.
Yeah, I'm trying not to get in trouble with my mom and say something stupid on here.
All right, Steele Chambers, congrats on a great career. Best of luck in the draft. We'll be watching, man.
That's it. Yep, appreciate it, brother.
Well, Saturday we got spring football here on the Big Ten Network, noon Eastern. You can see Purdue in action at Ross-Ade. Then at 2, it's Penn State taking the field. The blue-white game all Saturday, only on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. We will turn our attention to lacrosse next. Nationally ranked teams throughout the conference, how about the men's and women's side? Analyst Mark Dixon stopping by to help sort through it all. Straight ahead.